like taking THC gummies for sleep, because a fat burner brought that up today. And this is something I have known zero about. I have never used them, and I've never thought much about them. The thing that I had a concern with fat burners, occasionally talking about using them, is perhaps the fact that there's like sugar in the gummy. Does this break a fast? That's the last thing we want to do, is eat essentially before bed. But anyway, they're actually far more problematic than simply raising your blood sugar. So if this is something that you use for sleep and you think it's kind of benign, not so much. So anyway, so the whole thing is that the reason why this is potentially not the thing for anyone is that it suppresses deep sleep. So it suppresses REM sleep. And this is where like your body repairs itself. It hormonally repairs itself. It releases human growth hormone. This is where cortisol gets reset. This is where leptin and ghrelin get regulated. These are your hunger hormones. This is also something that's even more consequential for women in perimenopause or after menopause, because our hormonal systems are already under pressure. So REM sleep it's where your body has the chance to like repair itself. So if you're suppressing that, you're putting yourself in a compromised position. So the thing that is also problematic about them is that basically like regular use creates a rebound effect. So the body adapts to this THC assisted sleep. And then without it, it's like you develop a dependency. Without it, sleep gets worse. And so essentially then you think like, you know, I need to use this. We're just kind of like chasing the high. You know, I can't sleep without it. Now I need it. And so anyway, so I know a lot of people talk about the fact that like, whatever, I am so like removed from the land of like weed or cannabis or whatever, always, like never, ever, ever my thing. So I don't even have the language. But anyway, people talk about the fact that like, you know, whatever, weed, pot, cannabis is not addicting, but this sounds like it is, in the sense of the thing that you're using it to help you with. And so in our purposes, so I always talk about weight loss. I always talk about health, metabolic health, but really like that's how I help people, is with weight loss, and then as a very direct result, metabolic health, improved health overall, increased health, typically increased longevity. But anyway, this is problematic for fat burning. So basically, when we have poor REM sleep, deep sleep, we have elevated cortisol. And if you didn't listen to the talk the other week, we talked about how cortisol has this direct impact on visceral fat. So this is belly fat, which is, what do I want to say? It's metabolically active. It actually grows itself and creates more insulin resistance. It is not the fat that you want to have on your frame. It's, what do I want to say? It's less problematic to have like fat on your butt or your thighs, but when it's on your belly, when it's wrapped around your organs, this is something that basically compounds on itself, creates more insulin resistance, and there's just a relationship with elevated cortisol creating more of it. Anyway, disrupted leptin and ghrelin signals. And so these two hormones are consequential for weight loss and hunger. So basically, ghrelin makes us want to eat more, and leptin is kind of the break. Leptin lets us know like, oh, that's enough, you know, I'm so full, thank you very much. And so when we don't have that reset in deep sleep because of THC gummies, we have increased hunger the next day, or that is a possibility. And then lowered growth hormone. And so basically that reduces our ability to burn fat, and certainly burn fat at night. Human growth hormone is kind of considered our fountain of youth. It positively affects testosterone levels, which affects our muscle mass, which affects things like our libido, confidence. Testosterone is such a great hormone in terms of staving off depression, anxiety. We tend to feel more confident with it, men and women. But human growth hormone is basically the thing that helps with our immune system. It helps our body regenerate. What do I want to say? It staves off illness. It helps with muscle growth again. And so it's like we want this in good supply, and deep sleep is where it gets kind of replenished. So anyway, so the lens that I'm always looking through is around weight loss. And so this is completely disruptive for weight loss, which is like what the people I'm working with are focused on. And so the whole thing too is that the dependence for sleep use specifically, it's a higher risk for dependence than recreational use. And I think this is interesting. Basically, it's just because it's like you're using it for a specific purpose and it's working, it's helping you to go to sleep, but it's not giving you quality sleep, and it's messing with these other things because of that. So because it works, you use it again, and the more you use it, the higher your tolerance becomes to it. And then if you stop it, that can lead to bouts of insomnia, which kind of feels like proof that you actually need it. And apparently daily users have roughly, this is a statistic that's not my own, 17 to 19% rate of developing cannabis use disorder. And what I assume that just means is like an element of addiction. So the whole thing with THC gummies for sleep, it's a short-term win. It's a short-term solution with a long-term metabolic and hormonal cost. And the exit is harder than the entry. So it's easier to start and to have a positive experience, and it's harder to get off of them because of this dependence and even insomnia that can result from not using them after you've kind of gotten used to it. Anyway, so I'll say that. We'll talk about some things that could help you with sleep if you have, obviously, if you're struggling with this. Some people talk about that melatonin either doesn't work for them or that it stimulates them. And so apparently that can happen if the dose is high. Obviously, you know yourself. Personally, I think melatonin is like a gift from God. And I think I use a milligram. I think that's right, like a teeny tiny tablet when I use it. But I think it is the best. And it's something that one of the ways to help not rely on this, to help your sleep quality as well, is consistent wake up times, and I'm gonna say also consistent bedtimes. I am not the queen in this capacity. But anyway, so melatonin I think is so useful to get us in a rhythm, to get us regularly being able to fall asleep kind of at will, and then getting better at having that, reasonable amount of sleep time, 7 to 8 hours, and then getting up on more of a routine schedule. But anyway, a few other supplements that you might want to think about. So I'm just going to talk about supplements and then behavioral lifestyle assists that could be useful. So basically magnesium glycinate, this is something people talk about. And so this is something, this calms the nervous system, it supports muscle relaxation, and it is something that can be a little lighter on our digestion as well. I used to take a tea that had this in it right before bed. Ashwagandha, I'm so curious about this. So this is an adaptogen. Yay. This is my push for like an alcohol-free universe. And that adaptogens might be a nice substitute at bars, should proprietors wish to fulfill my desires in this capacity. But basically, so adaptogens enable the body to handle stress better. And so this helps lower cortisol, which is often the actual reason why women over 40 can't sleep. And so it's because when our estrogen is lower, our cortisol is louder. We talked about this last week. We talked about this the week before. And so when you don't have a metabolic foundation that keeps cortisol lower as a result of the fuel that you're using, like fat versus sugar, when you are sugar reliant, when you're glucose dependent, which most of the world is, you would know if you were not, you wouldn't be hungry often, you wouldn't have cravings, you wouldn't have energetic crashes. But the whole thing is that when we are using sugar for energy and our body needs energy, our body will raise cortisol to raise blood sugar to get energy. So it can just kind of keep us in this perpetually high state of cortisol because of our energetic requirements. But the whole thing is that you could simply be burning a different fuel and you would sidestep that need. If you have any curiosity about that, I will attach a sugar burning quiz. If you want to see where you are, I'll put that underneath this video. It can be very eye-opening for people. And the fact that that is an option. You do not need to live in this high cortisol environment. And as a woman over 40, when estrogen is lower, cortisol is no longer buffered. But if you're burning fat, you don't have as much of a, that state is not as much of an issue because of the fuel that you're using. L-theanine. So this is an amino acid from green tea. This is another supplement that can help us in the effort to sleep. And this promotes calm without sedation. And that's the whole thing. So cortisol, typically, if cortisol is raising in the night, it's because the body needs energy. And so essentially we want to help to keep cortisol low, and we want to be able to access our own body fat for energy. I'm not going to say, I'll just say this, phosphatidylserine, which is also very useful for cortisol. If anyone has any questions, just let me know. Very happy to repeat these things or write them out. And then glycine, and this is another amino acid that I am very familiar with. And this one has a lot of research behind it for good sleep quality and core body temperature reduction. This is something that's actually found in bone broth. And so I'll just say, so for my boosters, so for our longer duration fasting, we have a whole slew of tools that we use to help us in the effort to stay comfortable in order to fast for longer. And so step one, we're fat adapted, we're used to eating once a day, and then we just take that one meal out. And so it feels really easy. But anyway, we have all of these tools to use, like if we need something. And glycine is like the end of the line. And so it's in bone broth. So that could be something if you are someone that is, eating regularly and just wants to try something out. I think that's a really reliable one. It's soothing. Bone broth is like, it's a little heavier, it's a little richer, and then glycine is in it. And that is very good for sleep. Behavioral or lifestyle stuff. So this is something too, like I wouldn't necessarily, actually this is good. This is good. So if we listen to popular information regarding having more protein and fat in the morning, so whether we're eating, those of us just eat once, but if you are eating more carbohydrates or if you are eating multiple times a day, putting your protein and fats earlier in the day and having more of your carbohydrates at night is actually useful. And so this can affect your serotonin and tryptophan pathways. And so this actually is something that can help you to feel kind of calmer and satisfied before bed. So just even thinking about that, even if you're like eating in more of a fat burning lifestyle, if you're eating twice a day, having more of your fat and protein earlier in the day and more of your carbohydrates later in the day. Cold exposure before bed, I don't know what I think about this one. It's like, I don't know where we're doing this. And so this just might be having a cool room, you know, having a cool home, you know, making sure that the environment is not hot. I know that's supposed to be desirable for sleeping. And then I already said it, consistent wake time. And so that is actually something that really helps with anchoring our circadian rhythms. And so that can just help us to get in more of a better cycle for sleep. And so anyway, this is even saying that it's more important than bedtime, consistent wake time. I'm going to say both, but that's good to know. So actually, and that consistent wake time might help us to get to bed on time as well. Okay, so that's it. So this was very eye-opening to me. I didn't have a strong feeling one way or the other. Like, they're not my thing. I've never used them. But now I know they are a very bad idea. Because they mess with REM sleep, and that's when so many beneficial things happen for the body, especially with weight loss. Human growth hormone, cortisol levels, leptin levels, ghrelin levels. So perhaps some of these alternatives might be something to try. And then the other thing I'll just say, if you are using them with any frequency, the likelihood of being dependent is high. And the likelihood of you struggling to get to sleep seems likely because they kind of promote insomnia after a time. So I'm just going to say, like, if that sounds like you, I'm just going to encourage you to like go for the greater good and to know that these are not a long-term solution. And so either don't use them or get off of them soon. Do what you need to do, but basically they just kind of compound, become more addictive, mess with your sleep more, make you more dependent on them. And so there's no better way out than to just stop, really, and to figure out something else. So ashwagandha, glycine, magnesium glycinate, L-theanine, those just might be supplements to look into. And then we talked about having more of your carbohydrates later in the day, cold exposure before bed, and then a consistent wake time. All right, so be in touch for any reason. Once again, that cortisol impact is more common when people are reliant on sugar for energy. So if you would like to see where you fall, please check out our quiz in the comments, in the description. Okay, that's it. I hope that was amazing. Be in touch for any reason. Love to you, and until next time.